Okay, so welcome back. So in this particular session, we're gonna look at simple example of constructing a Taylor series expansion. So what exactly? So if everyone can mute their mics, it will be good.
Yes, sir. Everyone mute the mic, sir. Everyone is mute, sir.
Okay. So what is a Taylor series expansion? So if we want to evaluate x in the neighborhood of a, so suppose this is the function and this is a point a. I want to know how the function behaves in the neighborhood of a. So this point is x equals a. So how do we do that? So f of x is then approximated as f of a plus df dx evaluated at x equal to a times x minus a plus d2f dx2 evaluated at a times x minus a whole square by 2 factorial plus d3f by dx3 evaluated at a times x minus a cubed divided by 3 factorial and so on. So the nth term will be dnf by dxn x minus a raised to n by n factorial, right? So if this is the way to express this, let us see how we can encode this entire thing in Python. And of course, we'll not make use of specialized functions. So this example will serve as a basis to write functions, pass variables, and all these things. So it's a very simple example, but it's useful nevertheless. So let me change my screen real quick. So let me create a new file. So we define comments in Python with a leading hashtag. So whatever follows a hashtag is inside comments. So we will write here what the purpose of the function is. So okay. So in order to do so, we must recall that what the formula is. So f of x in the neighborhood of a is f of a plus f prime x evaluated at a times x minus a, and you don't know the formula. So this is how we evaluate it. So first we must define what function we are trying to approximate. So def f of x. So this is how you define a function. Def f of x means define a function f called f which takes an input x. And in Python, the indentation is very important. So this particular set of spaces is called as indenting the code. So this means there is no indentation. So this means there is no indentation. But if I press tab once, this means there is indentation. Okay. So the scope of the function is as far as the indentation is. So if I do this, so this particular thing is what the function would be defined as, and this thing is outside the function because the indentation has been finished after this particular line. Okay. So unlike C, there are no brackets over here. I mean, there are brackets, but there are no brackets to define the scope of the function. So what should the function return? The function has to return me the evaluation of the function at the point f. Okay. So let me say the function is 3 multiplied by x square plus sine of x but I cannot use directly sine, so I have to import numpy. So import numpy as np. So then to evaluate the sine, I have to do np dot sine of x minus 2. And so this is what the evaluation will be. But after the function is executed, I want to really return the user the value outputted by this particular code. So I have to do return this. So it's a very simple one-line function. It could have been written as an anonymous function as well, but we'll not cover those here. So essentially, it takes an input x and it outputs 3x square plus sine x minus 2. It is good practice to write it as this. So the raising of a power is as star star. It is not what you think it is. It is not 3 square, suppose. 3 square usually in C and other languages would be as this. In fact, in C you would write power 3 comma 2. But over here it is 3 star star 2, meaning 3 to the power 2. So once you have this defined, let us see whether this works. So first of all, let us save the file. Let us call this file as Taylor series. So let us see whether at least the function return works. So let me run this file. So you can run the file by clicking on this green button. It will execute all the commands there are inside this. And if there are any errors, it will show them over here. So after this line, there is no error. It means everything is executed as per plan. So let us see. Let us say, okay, one more thing. This x that we are passing is not to be confused with any other x that we will be using. So afterwards in the function, I can use the value of x again. This x is just a placeholder for this. I could have called it as a and I have to replace all the x's by a. I could have called it Aditya as well. Okay, I would have then have to replace all the x by Aditya. The point is, this is telling that if you obtain x as an input, do this operation on x. It doesn't matter what you call x. You can call it alpha, beta, gamma, whatever. Okay, this is just a function. So the scope of x is only restricted to this function. Outside the function, you can define x to be whatever you want. So let us say x equals 1.0. So this is now outside the function. It is outside the function because we have not indented it. It is outside the indentation. Had this been indented, it would have defined x inside the function, but we don't want to do that. So this is outside the scope of the function. So this is the function to evaluate the function that we want, the equation that we want. And it is good practice to put docstring. So docstring is a set of triple quotes and it tells the user what this function does. So it is good practice if you are making big programs to tell the user what it does. This outputs 3x square plus sine x minus 2. Okay, so when someone else reads your code, he should know what this function does. So this particular thing is called as a docstring. So x equals 1. So print. Now I want to print the value of x and I want to print the value of fx. So I will say within quotes x equals, after this I want to print the value of x, so I will say x and I will do backslash t, then I will say f of x equals and I will print f of x. Okay, I will save this and I will run it. So look, in the output we have x equals 1 and f of x equals 1.84147, whatever it is. So I again tell you that this x has nothing to do with this x. In fact, let me do this thing. Let me call this as y, and it will still run. Okay, it gives the same answer. In fact, let me call this as Aditya, and it still gives me the same answer after running. So the whole point is, this is just a placeholder for what I will get as an input. So if I get Aditya as input, I have to do this operation on Aditya and give it back to the function. Okay. So let me change this to x, because x looks more pretty. It is more easy to talk about the function that way. So now we have written x and we have printed the value of x. But this is not what we want, but I just wanted to show you how it works. So now you may ask, what is this backslash t? For those of you who might be familiar with C programming, backslash t is something which puts a tab between two strings. So this is a string, so it says to the print command that print this particular string. So x equal to is printed over here. Then it says after that you print the value of x. So x is 1.0, so it prints the value of x as 1.0. Then it tells, then give a tab. So this is that particular tab. Then it says print the string fx equals. So this is another string. Anything within quotes is a string. So it then again prints f of x. Then after that I say now print the value of f of x. So what happens here, when this particular thing is encountered in the code, it takes the value of x, it puts it in f of x, which goes to this function, it evaluates what this function is, meaning it takes the return value. So this 3x square plus sin x minus 2 is returned in place of f of x. Wherever f of x will appear, then this argument, which is in this case 1, would go all the way to this function and it would be printed. Alternately, I could have done here f of 1.0. Again, it gives the same answer. But I want to pass this because I can simply then change the value of x and find out the values. So let me change the value of x. Let's say x equal to 2. So it gives the value of 10.909 and so on. But suppose I want to print the value of fx over a large range of numbers. I want to print the value of x over say minus or say from 0 to 4, for example. I want to print the values fx from 0 to 4. So how do I do that? So let us go back to our Python console. So let me define x as np dot linspace. So linspace meaning linear space. So np is the numpy import that we have already done, and linspace means it tells Python that you create a linear space between 0 and the end point. So the end point, let us say we wanted to plot it from 0 to 4, and how many points I want to define in this. So let's say I want to have 10 points going from 0 to 4. So now let's see what x is. X is 0, 0 0.44, 0 0.88, 1.33, 1.77, 2.22, 2.66, 3.11, 3.55 and 4. And you can count that these are indeed 10 values. How do I know for sure there are 10 values? I will do np dot shape x. So it says 10 comma, meaning 10. Okay. So I have taken 10 equidistant points between 0 and 4, and the number of points chosen are 10. So I will go here, I will say x equals np dot linspace 0 comma 4.0, and I will take 20 points. Okay. Now what should I do? I have now an array of 20 elements. I have to loop over the array x, feed each value of x into the function and then print out the value of the function. But before that, let us simply see how to loop over all the values of x. We have seen here what the values held in the function in the variable x are. So let me just tell you how to access elements. So x0 is 0, x1 is 0.444. So this is how you access elements of an array. Okay. So we have to do for I equals for I in np.arange 0 to 20. Let me tell you what np.arange means. Let us go back to our IPython console. So this is how it is convenient to use an IPython console with the editor, because I can quickly go back to my IPython console, quickly see whether the function works or not, and then I can put the script appropriately. So let me define C as np.arange 0 to 5. Let me print what C is. So when I put np.arange 0 to 5, it defines an array from 0 to 4 with increments of 1. So 5 is the last element, it does not include the last element. This we have seen in the previous lecture as well. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. And what does it mean to write for I in np range, np.arange? It means for I going from 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. So for I in np.range 0, 20, let us simply write print I. Okay. Let us simply write print I, and let us suppress this print by commenting it out. So I have commented out this particular print statement, and I am simply printing out the value of I. So let us see what happens when you run this. So 0 to 20 will not be the range. So np.arange 0 to 20 will give me a vector from 0 to 19. It will not give me 0 to 20, it will give me 0 to 19, and I'm simply printing I. So what are the values? 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So these are the values of I that are printed from this loop. Let me just do this I equals I. So it will now print me I equals 10, I equals 11, and so on. It's just to beautify this particular printing statement. Now I know that I am able to access all the elements inside np.arange. Just to recall, np.arange goes from 0 to 19. So if I were to do this x of I in the loop, when the loop executes, so what will happen? Initially I will be 0, then I will be 1, then I will be 2. So then I will be accessing x of 0, x of 1, x of 2, and so on. Because I in np.arange 0 to 20 means I takes value each successively inside this object. And we have already seen that inside this object you have integers going from 0 to 19 in steps of 1. Now someone might think, okay, suppose I don't want in steps of 1, maybe I want in steps of 2. So what should be done? So let me define G as np.arange 0 to 20 in steps of 2. Let me see what G is. So G is 0, 2, 4, 6 and going all the way to 18. Remember, we will not include 20 in the array, and so because we are stepping everything by steps of 2, I will skip all the intermediate values. So I will skip 1, 3, 5, 7 and so on. Okay, but in this case, if you do not specify this number, by default it accepts a number of 1, which means it will create a list of integers going from 0 to 19. So x of I accesses successively all the elements of x. So x0, x1, x2 all the way to x19. So let me print this. So print xi. If I run this, so look, I have accessed 0.0, 0.21 and so on. So these are going all the way to 4. These are 20 elements which have gone all the way to 4. But I don't want to print it like this. I want to print it in a slightly better manner. So I will write x equals x, and then I will give a tab percent backslash t, then I will write f of x equals, then I will write f of, so what do you think should come here? Because I want to pass the particular value of x at which I am presently residing at, I will pass here x of I. So what this will do, it will print the value of x, it will print the value of fx also, and then proceed. So let us do this. Okay, good. So when we have run this function, we have x equals 0, fx equal minus 2. Let's see, when x equal to 0, 3x square becomes 0 because x is 0, sine of 0 is 0. So the function output is minus 2. Great, we have minus 2. It's a very easy check. So this kind of loop you can execute in Python. But in order to quickly evaluate all the values of f of x, there is a even simpler way, that is a vector way. So what we have done here is a looped operation. It's a scalar operation. Okay, it takes each value of x at a given time, it passes it to fx, then prints it, then it goes in, then it proceeds in the loop, then it goes to the next value of I, then it prints that value of x corresponding to that index, then it passes that x to the function and does. So one by one you are accessing x and accessing and outputting fx. But how do we do it over in Python? We write y is equal to f of x. Okay, so x here is going from 0 to 4 with 20 number of points. Y equal to f of x is called as a vector operation because it will take this entire vector x and simply dump it into the function f of x. It will sort of do the loops for you. Now someone might be confused by fx over here and fx over here. No problem. Let me first comment these two lines because we don't want to access them anymore. We will comment these two lines. So let me call this as x1. x1 equals np.linspace 0 to 4 comma 20. So 0 to 4 in with having 20 points. Now y equal to f of x1. So it will do the entire task of looping for you because it's a numpy array. It is possible for me to broadcast all the elements of x1, push it to the function evaluator over here, and get all the outputs corresponding to each x1 inside y. So y equal to fx1 will have all the values that we have printed over here. All these values on the second column will now be stored in y. So let us do that. Let us run this script. So look, y last element. So the last element of y will be y end. What do you think this will be? Oh, y19. It has to be a square bracket. My bad. So y19 as evaluated with this is 45.24 something something, and in this it was also 45.24 something. So through this simple line we have avoided writing two lines. We have avoided scalarization of a loop by vectorizing the entire operation. In fact, this approach is much more desirable when we do large operations on large data sets, because looping over each value one by one is quite slow, and Python optimizes this function evaluation for arrays. So y equal to f of x1 gives me all the values of y which correspond to f of x, where x is all these, where x corresponds to all these elements. Now let us proceed. So I just wanted to show you the power of linspace. Okay. Before proceeding, let us quickly plot this function. How much time do we have left? I think we have some time left. So to plot, we must import matplotlib.pyplot. So let us import this package as PLT. It is customary to name this as this. You will find in various examples throughout the internet as this. Of course, you can call it anything you want, like I showed. So let us again define X as linspace 0 to 4 as 20 points and Y equals f of X. Now I just want to plot X and Y. So PLT dot plot X comma Y. Let us run this. It should be np.linspace. So if you ever encounter an error, it will be shown in the IPython console. It has to be np.linspace. So when we run this, we can go into the plot explorer over here, and good, we have the plot of 3x square plus sin x. It looks like this. Okay. So at x equal to 0, the value of the function is -2. So this corresponds to -2. This is 0. Let us turn on the grid. So plt.grid true. This means it will turn on the grid. Okay, now we have the grid. So this is the 0 line and this is -2. Let us close the plots. Now that we have this, let us quickly do the Taylor series approximation.
Sir, may I interrupt?
Yes.
Again, now sir, 5 minutes will be remaining for.
Sure. We can do it in another session also, no problem. So let us define f prime of x as another function, and this function should return the derivative of 3x square plus sin x minus 2. So what is the derivative of 3x square plus sin x minus 2? It will be 6x plus np dot cos x plus 0. So whenever I ask to evaluate fp, it should return me 6x plus np dot cos x. Let me also define the next derivative. So diff fp fpp x. So second derivative f prime prime f double prime. So it should return me what? 6 minus sin x, and f triple prime, it should return, what should it return? Minus cos x. So this should all be np dot. Okay, so now we have defined the 4 derivatives, rather the 3 derivatives and the function itself. So we will go outside the function now. So these are the 4 functions. So this is first function, second function, third function, fourth function. We will now define the main script. So what should we do? We have to first define the range over which we want to evaluate the approximation. Because so we have to define first at which point we want to evaluate the Taylor series. So A, we have to define what A is. Suppose A is 1.0. So we will now write a Taylor series approximation about the point A. So I will define X as np.linspace going from 0 to say 3 in steps of and it will have 50 points. So now what will be fx, or what will be the approximation? So let me write y approx. It will be f at a. So f at a plus f prime evaluated at a times x minus a plus 1 by 2 times f double prime x minus a square So f double prime must be evaluated at x equal to a. So this will be x minus s. Let us say we only retain the first 3 terms. So this is y approx. So let me run the script. I've run the script. Let me quickly go to my IPython console and let me try to plot now the two functions. So actually we should write the y exact as f of x. So this is the exact solution, the exact function, and this is the approximate function. So let me run this. Okay, we have run this. So I will say plt.plot x comma y exact and x comma y approx. So we can see here two lines. I mean, there are actually two lines over here. If you focus closely in this region, the interactive plot is off by default, and so you cannot really see. But there are two lines over here, and the approximation is quite good. The approximation is quite good. Actually, let us retain only one term. Let us see what happens. If we retain only one term, let me run the script and let me again plot. Okay, so if we choose only one term in the Taylor series approximation, that actually corresponds to a linear approximation. This was a quadratic approximation, and this actually corresponds to a linear approximation. So a linear approximation about the point x equal to 1. So at exactly the point x equal to 1, you have identically the exact solution and the approximate solution agreeing, because you can substitute x equal to a in the Taylor series and you will find the exact value. But the linear approximation quickly diverges from the actual function that we want. And that is quite natural because the Taylor series approximation is only valid in the neighborhood of the point A. So in the neighborhood of the point A, which is 1, we have a good approximation of the function. And in fact, when we take the second thing, we have a very good approximation. So this is how we do it. But I want to really print out all the points. So how do I do that? So in fact, whatever this is, let us put it inside a function. Let us cut this. Let us define f approx x, but it will not just include x, it will also include the point A. I will tell you why it is. Because in order to construct the approximate function, we have to give as an input to the approximate function evaluator what the point A will be, about which you want to evaluate the function. So f underscore A will take as an input x, which is a point in the neighborhood of A, and it will return a Taylor series approximation of this. So then y approx will simply be f of A evaluated for all values of x in my array defined above, and the input A will be provided from the main script. So this will have the approximate function. Let us run this and let me print. So print, or okay, I can do many things over here. I can do for I in np.a range 0, 50, right? Print x equals, then I will write the value of xi. I will write y exact equals, then I will write y exact I, and I will write y approx, then I will write y approx I, and in fact I will write error, then I will take the difference, so it will be y exact I minus y approx I. Okay, so let me save it and print. Okay, the outputs don't look very beautiful, but let's focus on the value at x equal to 1. At x equal to 1 or near to 1, we do see that the error is quite small, and going away from x equals 1, the error is quite large. And there are various ways of beautifying this output. Let us not focus on all those things over here. But through this simple script, we have learned about creating functions. We have learned about creating functions which take multiple inputs. So this particular function takes input x and a. So I can call f of a at 1.1 about the point 1. So it will evaluate the Taylor series at the point x equals 1.1 about for the Taylor series approximation evaluated about the point 1. Okay, I think we are almost running out of time for this particular session. There will be one more session after this.
Sir,
Yes,
after this, sir, we will continue, sir.
yes, one more session.
Sir, this time
We will do one more, why not?
sir, means this meeting will end, I think,